Hey guys, it's Friday again, which means it's time for our one-to-one time. Now, I'm really limited on time today, so I'm gonna have to kind of rush through a little bit. But basically, I usually do all my filming in the afternoon, but unfortunately today I've got some meetings and I can't bring my camera with me like I did last week. So I've had to film in the morning. I'm not quite sure the caffeine's hit my system yet. I don't know if I've set up the camera properly, so fingers crossed I'm not out of focus. But anyway, we've got limited time, so let's get straight into it. Now, one thing I found really funny about these videos, the Friday ones, where I'm trying to give you like a personal side to all of this, is that I've seen certain critical comments in the comment section where people are criticizing like, oh, I can't believe he did that. I can't believe he says this. I can't believe he feels this way. I'd never do that. I mean, like the whole point of these videos is that I'm showing you everyone has flaws. And of course, my flaws aren't going to be the same as everyone else's. You might have a strength where I've got a weakness and vice versa. But I can only talk about my own experience. So telling me that you wouldn't do a certain thing, well, okay, obviously you wouldn't, you're a different person. But the whole point is that it's hopefully relatable for other people. And so one thing I want to talk about today is pressure with trading and how that's affected me. I can't believe I've got to put a disclaimer on this, but this obviously doesn't apply to everyone. It applies to me, and some of you will relate to this, and some of you will feel this, and some of you won't, and you won't find any value in what I'm saying. But basically, I think with trading, there's a certain amount of pressure, and it never really goes away. It just shifts and changes. So a lot of you probably notice, like, well, when you first start, some of you with a demo account will feel that pressure with every trade. Some of you are really reluctant to open trades. I never felt that really. That's why I think I jumped straight to doing live accounts. And when I was learning to trade, I just burnt through live accounts all the time. That's how I did it. It cost me a lot of money. It was a stupid way to do it. I wouldn't advise it for anyone. But it's because like I only started to get that edge of like, you know, feeling things that are serious, like feeling I had to take things seriously when I had live money at risk. And some of you can relate to that. So let's start off there. Like some of you will feel pressure if you're trading on a live account or demo account right at the start, and you're wondering like, is it always going to feel this way where I've got the knots in my stomach when I open a trade? And I'd say it goes away. Like after time, you get used to the amount you're trading. But the thing I found is that there's certain levels that you go through. So for example, like when I started to trade amounts of money that actually meant something to me, suddenly that pressure was higher. And especially back then, the whole problem with my trading was that I was risking more than I should have done. Like now I always say you should only ever risk a maximum of 1 to 2% of your account per trade. And back then I was just letting trades run a lot longer. So I'd cut them out eventually, but I'd let them run. And the problem with this is that you feel the pressure so much more, because then you get this situation where when the trade goes against you, you get a sudden like feeling in your stomach, like when a car goes over a bump in the road and your stomach jumps, or like when you're on a roller coaster, like you get that all the time. And it's like, I don't know if it's an adrenaline rush or what, like someone else could probably tell me what that is, that feeling. But you get that feeling because you know that you're in that fight or flight mode. I guess it is adrenaline. You're in that fight or flight mode. You've got to sort of like figure out how to get out of that situation. And that's not really how trading should ever be. That's one of the reasons that we only ever risk 1 to 2%, is that you can be a lot clearer with your thinking. But the thing is, like, as we move along, like, as I think that you start to get used to any amount of money that you're trading, whether it's that £1,000 means a lot to you and you're trading that and it's like scary to start with, you overcome it after time, like after a certain amount of time. Everyone's different, so it might take you longer than it took me. For the smaller amounts, it didn't really matter so much. But then you move along to bigger amounts. So for example, when I started trading with like tens of thousands, or even getting closer to that, you get that pressure again. And also, like I've said before, when you start talking to friends and family, it adds that pressure. And the pressure's not nice. Like, it gives you an ill feeling. Sometimes, in fact, if you're in a trade, I found this, and I'm sure a lot of you feel this too. Like, when you're in a trade and it was losing, if you don't have that cap and a stop loss and you're definitely going to get out at a certain amount, then you just want to escape. Like, sometimes you're happy to deal with the trade, and sometimes you just want to get out of there. So for me, it was like going out, like meeting people, or, you know, going and doing something completely different, going and watching something. I used to go and watch some boxing for me. Hey, everyone knows I like my boxing by now. Like just getting away from the screen, even if there's a trade open. Like a lot of people I've seen in the emails I get and that kind of thing, people have a trade that's going against them, and rather than dealing with it, they get to this point where it's almost like the pressure is built up so much that they take a sort of I don't give a shit attitude and just leave the trade running and think whatever happens, happens. So it might burn out their account, it might make a lot of money. And inevitably what usually happens is that it loses you a lot of money. But it's like that's your way of escaping the pressure, is to suddenly become blasé about it and not care about losing that money, like you've already written it off. And I think that this kind of goes up as you increase your money. Like you start to get used to it at a certain level, and it increases until the point where you can't take that attitude. You have to take things seriously, and that's when like managing your 1 to 2% is important. Having like, even if you think a trade's going to come back in your favor, getting out sooner and then jumping back in instead. Like, instead of hanging into it for like a 10% drawdown and letting it come back in your favor, that's ridiculous. Like, the pressure alone is going to be something you can't handle. I've experienced burnout from my trading where I've got very ill, and I think a lot of that is to do with obviously working around the clock, like I've said before, and that kind of thing. But I think a big part of it as well is that feeling in your stomach. Like, it can't be healthy to feel like you're sitting through watching England in a penalty shootout in the World Cup every time that you open a trade, and opening trades like a couple of times a day. At the end of the week, you're like, shit, you're like burnt out. Like, sometimes at the end of the week, I used to explain that my head felt like it was full of polystyrene. Like, it felt numb, it felt weird, but it's because of going through these cycles. Like, it can't be healthy at all. The good news is, if you're that type of person, there are some solutions. The first is to manage your risk properly, so you don't have to go through those sort of situations. And then, like, obviously you might go through a situation still where you feel the pressure when you're opening trades, but that goes over time. Like I said, you start getting used to the amounts of trading the amount of money that you're trading. And I think that I've got to a stage now where it doesn't really matter what amount I'm trading. I'm still going to be consistent. Maybe it would be different if I was trading like tens of millions or billions, which I'm not, obviously. But if I was trading those amounts of money, maybe things would be slightly different. Like, if I was putting at risk each time £10 million of my own money, I'd probably be shitting myself all the time. But I think that then changed for me was managing other people's money on their behalf. So, for example, starting up my company, I've suddenly got a business partner whose money is at risk as well as mine. And that adds a lot of pressure. Or trading on behalf of family and things like that. I want to do a video on this on its own as well, because I think it's an important one, because a lot of you, I've seen you start getting consistently profitable, or you think you're consistently profitable, and the first thing you want to do is trade on behalf of other people. And that adds a whole new level of pressure, which I think is something that you can't quite get rid of. Like, I think you can get used to it to an extent, but I know plenty of people that are hedge fund managers and other fund managers that never get over that pressure. And you might think you've got over that pressure when you're trading well, but as soon as you start hitting a couple of losses in a row, the pressure really gets to you again, and it's unhealthy. So you have to learn what your limits are. You have to learn how to balance things, how to like get over that sort of situation. And by the way, like, another thing, I noticed that one of the most pressurized situations for me was when I had good or bad performance and then waited a while, like a cool off period, before jumping back into the market. It's like a month or something like that. Because during that time, you're still thinking about the trading, and when you jump back in, suddenly you're hit by this sudden like wave of expectation, either from yourself or from other people. So that even counts when you have a big win. I think sometimes the best thing to do is, like they say, get back on a horse. If you fall off a horse, get straight back on. Don't leave too much time where it builds up this pressure, including like when you hit a certain milestone. A lot of people hit a milestone, whether that's £10,000, £100,000, whatever. Like, at that point, you kind of get the pressure again, because you don't want to ruin what you've created. And I think this probably can happen for any amount of money. If you have a consistently like a winning streak for a long time, then you maybe feel that pressure of you don't want to ruin it, so you're reluctant to trade. And some people will maybe go and enjoy the money, go on holiday or something, take some time off. But when you come back, then that's when the pressure hits you again. So I think it's important still to sort of to tick over, like to even open small trades for a period of time, just to tick over and wait till there's a really exceptional opportunity to jump back in. But I think, basically summing up what I've said, the pressure never goes away. It just shifts to something else. It shifts to something you're not used to. I don't think you can ever get in a situation where you're used to everything in trading, but the best ways to manage it, I've found, have been to control your risk. That is a game changer. I said last week about a game changer for me being when I realised I've got to run it like a company. And part of that, if you're running it like a company, is not taking unnecessary risks. That's more what you do as an individual with a hobby. You're willing to take those risks big time. As a company, you're more conservative. So managing your risk is a game changer. Not putting yourself in situations where you think there's a chance that you could be under pressure and uncomfortable, including managing money on other people's behalf. Like, you've got to think, okay, if there's big drawdowns, if I start losing money, am I going to be able to handle the pressure? Am I going to be able to look this person in the eye and tell them what's happened? If you can't, if you think that that's a no to both those things, then don't do it. Don't be too optimistic and assume you're just going to make money. Think of the downside as well. And you know, overall, you've just got to learn what works for you. Don't escape from the pressure in the wrong situations. Like if you're losing, don't go and try and escape and watch TV or something like I did, or like go out. Actually deal with it. I mean, there was one time where I made a loss and I ended up flying to Valencia and spending a weekend there, rather than dealing with the fact that I had a loss and I also had a business partner who was involved in that and I had to deal with that situation. I ran away, and that's not cool. It's not cool to do that at all. But you learn from these things. And that's another thing. You've got to learn from all of these experiences. You've got to learn what pushes the right buttons for you, what pushes the wrong buttons, and make sure you're in a situation where it's, you know, playing to your strengths. Don't put yourself under unnecessary pressure. Don't start telling people about all the returns you're going to make and pressurize yourself even more. Anyway, I think next week we're going to be talking about how you can balance working with trading. That's something that a lot of you want to know about, and I think it's an important one. So I'll see you then. I've got to rush off to my meetings. I'm running late now. Very late. Shit. All right, guys. Thanks a lot for watching. Leave me any comments and suggestions that you might have. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos. Have a great weekend. Take care. Bye-bye.